Sabbath, everybody. I invite you to kneel with me for prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you that we could all be here watching this video. Thank you that nobody has gotten sick with COVID, and help us to all be good for this coming week. In Jesus' name, amen.
I got my joy, 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 joy down in my heart. Where? Down in my heart. Where? Down in my heart. I got the joy, 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 joy down in my heart. Where? Down in my heart to stay. I'm so happy, so very happy. I got the love of Jesus in my heart, down in my heart. So Cece, why do we keep the Sabbath?
You see everything around us? The moon, the flowers, the water. We keep the Sabbath to honor our Creator.
Jesus?
Yes. Emily, what is your favorite part about the Sabbath?
My favorite part of the Sabbath is spending time with Jesus and the family. We have the best meals ever, and I love to watch children's church. What's your favorite part about the Sabbath?
My favorite part about the Sabbath is probably spending time with God.
That was a very important thing to do. Spending time with Jesus and God makes you grow and grow smarter.
Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shall thy labor and do all thy work. But the seventh day is a Sabbath day for the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work. Thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, thy maidservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea, and all that is in them, and rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it.
Worship God when we enjoy keeping the Sabbath. We hope you have a good Sabbath. Bye!
Hi everyone, it's Aunt Fernita. Today's story is called, What Is It? The memory verse is from Isaiah chapter 58, verses 13 and 14. If you call the Sabbath a delight, you will find your joy in the Lord. Today's message is we worship God when we enjoy keeping the Sabbath. Do you know what a desert is like? It is hot during the day and cold at night, with all the sand and little or nothing growing. Where could you find food in a desert? The Israelites traveled in the desert and they were almost out of food. What do you think they did? God took such good care of the Israelites. He sent a cloud to shade them from the hot desert sun in the day. He sent a pillar of fire at night to light their camp. He had freed them from Egypt and destroyed their enemies in the Red Sea. But the Israelites were beginning to worry. It had been 6 weeks since God had led them out of Egypt, and the food they had brought with them was almost gone. Back in Egypt, we had all the food we could eat, they grumbled. But here in this desert, we're going to starve to death. They complained bitterly to Moses. Of course, God had no intention of letting them starve to death. I will rain down bread from heaven, God told Moses. It will be there in the morning. The people are to go out every day and gather an omer each, but they must not keep any of it until the next day. I am going to test them to see if they follow my instructions. Sure enough, the next morning the ground was covered with thin white flakes. The people were surprised. What is it? They asked, again and again. It looked like frozen dew all over the ground. This is the bread God promised you. Gather it and eat it today, but don't try to keep any for tomorrow. It won't be good. So the people called it manna, which means, what is it? They gathered it up and tasted it. It tasted sweet like honey, and there was enough for everyone. But as soon as the sun grew hot, the manna that remained on the ground melted away. Some people gathered a lot. Some people gathered a little. all the people had just what they needed regardless of how much they gathered. "Don't keep any of it until the next morning," God had said. But some of them paid no attention. The next morning their leftover manna was full of worms and smelled bad. On the 6th day, the instruction was different. "Today you're going to gather twice as much," Moses said. "Tomorrow is God's Sabbath, a day of rest. There won't be any manna on the ground in the morning. So get enough for today and bake it or boil it, but save some of it for tomorrow." The double portion they were told to gather to keep for Sabbath would not get wormy. But wouldn't you know, some people didn't gather twice as much that Friday. Instead, they got up on Sabbath morning expecting to find manna. They had to learn their lesson the hard, hungry way. Of course, there was no manna on the ground that Sabbath morning, and there was none on any Sabbath that came after. "How long will they refuse to follow my instructions?" God sighed to Moses. The story of the manna teaches us two things. First, just like the Israelites, we honor God when we obey Him. Following His directions is an act of worship. It also teaches us that God knows best. His plans for us are for our own good. Following His instructions is the only way to really be happy. It took the Israelites a while to learn that they needed to follow God's instructions about the manna. They finally got it right. And it's a good thing, because that's what God fed them for the 40 years they spent in the wilderness. They also learned how important the Sabbath is to God. He wanted them and us to make it a special day, different from other days. When they kept the Sabbath special, when they didn't work by gathering manna, they were showing God their love and obedience, and they were really worshiping Him.
Created and produced by Falvo Fowler. This podcast is read by Franita Buddy Fullwood for Gracelink.net. Animation and artwork by Giogo Godoy. Audio is post-produced by Faith Toe at Studio El Piso in Singapore. The theme music is by Clayton Kinney. The audio engineer was Maurice Bailey.
Go.
For the last couple of months, we've been experiencing and observed a lot of pain, and it may be discouraging, but today we want to remind you of God's promises in 2 Corinthians 4:6-9. We invite you to sing along. For God who commanded the light to shine out of darkness has shine in our hearts to give the light of the knowledge of the glory of God and the face of Jesus Christ. For we have this treasure on earth in vessels, that the excellency of the power may be of God and not of men. 2 Corinthians 4:6-7. We are troubled every side, but not distressed. We are perplexed, but not in despair. Persecuted, but not forsaken. Cast down, but not destroyed. For God who commanded the light to shine out of darkness has shine in our hearts to give the light of the knowledge of the glory of God and the face of Jesus Christ. 2 Corinthians 4:6-9.
Hello, everybody. Happy Sabbath. This is this week's mission story. I'm sorry. I hope you guys enjoy. 14-year-old Jelena loved jewelry and makeup, and she wore a ton of rings on each finger, at least 3. And she wore so many bracelets and a silver necklace. And crazy makeup and all her hair all up in a different weird Rocky style. And her 19-year-old sister Liliana loved praising God, and she gave her heart to Christ. And she loved going to church and praising God and everything. And her mother was not okay with this. She did not like what she was doing. And one day, Liliana came home. She said, "I have something to tell you. I don't want to eat meat anymore." Mother was not happy. She angrily yelled at her. And whenever dinner would come, she would try to hide the chicken. She would chop it up into little pieces and try to hide it with all the veggies and the rice. And whenever Liliana would get dressed on Sabbath to go to church, her mother would block the door to keep her from going out of the house. And whenever Mother would yell at Jelena did not want to be in the same room, so she went to her own room to stay there until Mom was finished yelling. During all of this, Liliana still had peace, and she wanted to share that peace with her sister. So she convinced Jelena to start praying and reading the Bible. And whenever Jelena was reading the Bible, she realized that she wanted peace like her sister. So she prayed, asked God for peace, and then suddenly she felt peace. She had it. And one day when Jelena was reading the Bible, she read something. It said that elaborate hairstyles and crazy makeup were not the way to get people's attention. And she wanted to put away all of her makeup and jewelry so that she wouldn't get distracted from God. And she wanted to get baptized. And whenever her mother found out that Jelena wanted to get baptized, she was not happy with this. A couple months later, she asked for Bible studies, and Liliana and Jelena were surprised. It went on like this for a couple of years. Every month she would ask for a Bible study. And then one day she realized she wanted to get baptized. Liliana and Jelena were so happy for her. And when she got baptized, everybody was happy. So I hope you guys enjoyed this week's mission story.
This is the story of the Good Samaritan.
And who told the story about the Good Samaritan?
Jesus.
And why did he tell the story?
Because the Jewish leaders said, "How do I get to heaven?" Give us all your money. Give us all your money. What?
Huh? I have to hurry. Oh.
Oh no! He needs my help. Oh, let me help you, sir. What happened? Well, these guys just came and they beat me up and they took all my money. And I was just minding my own business. I'm so sorry. Here, let me get you some water and I'll give you a place to stay for the night, okay? Oh, thank you so much. But you don't even know me. And we don't even look alike.
You're a lamb. And I'm a bunny.
It's okay. Jesus says to love your neighbor. So that's what I'm going to be doing with you today.
Oh, thank you so much. How can I ever thank you?
Well, just love your neighbor, like the Bible says.